Mother Teresa and values-based leadership, creating jobs for India's youth, leading India into the 21st century. Poverty in India, will it be eradicated? The great Indian elections, the mirage of healthcare in India. Is India the land of opportunity? What should be done? How should we achieve it? Will this happen or that work? Many questions are asked every day and many ideas generated every minute, every second. Some of them definitely prove to be fruitful, but others go down the drain. But what is really important? What is important is that we should have a vision. We should be able to dream, to create an idea. And to talk about many such ideas, we are here at the Meridien Hotel, New Delhi, where Ideas India 2010 is on. Mother Teresa, the symbol of love, compassion and undying faith, brought together 123 countries and 4,000 nuns under her leadership based on spirituality and clear-heartedness. She touched one and all with her magic touch. Can such be leadership today? Can we incorporate this in today's world?
My association with Mother Teresa. So I've got to begin the story in the beginning and tell you where I began. I was the young secretary to the Lieutenant Governor in Delhi long years ago and didn't really know much about Mother Teresa, wasn't particularly interested. When somebody came, there's always some catalyst in one's life that comes in a sort of unexpected way. And there was this lady who then spoke about Mother Teresa one evening, and it caught my imagination. And 2 weeks later, in the series of coincidences that mark our lives, Mother Teresa had written a letter to the Lieutenant Governor, and what struck me more than what she had written was the fact that it was a sheet of paper torn out from a child's exercise book, and it was a very strong handwriting. And she asked him whether he'd come and inaugurate that morning a home for the elderly disabled in Delhi. And so she wanted him to come and inaugurate this little home for the elderly destitute. So I asked him, I said, I never used to accompany him, but I said, can I accompany you this morning? So I went and felt instantly ashamed because we went in a big car and there were outriders and all that sort of thing. And in this humble home there was this still, even at that time, slightly bent nun, 3 or 4 other sisters, lots of elderly sitting up on their beds, making bandages. And Mother Teresa's hope was that those few bandages could be bought by the Delhi government hospitals. But as I stood behind her, what I noticed was that although her sari was white and shining, it was darned in many places. And it took me a little while later that morning to discover that those saris were all woven by leprosy patients at a home outside Calcutta called Titagarh, which is a huge leprosy colony. And then, even then, I noticed that her hands were sort of gnarled like this, her feet were bent, and this was testimony to this arduous life that she led in the streets and the slums of India and the world. But she was joyful, she was cracking jokes, and so were her sisters, and the whole thing was so completely different from anything that I'd been led to expect that the impact was enormous. That was the kind of effect that Mother Teresa often had right in the beginning with people. The Lieutenant Governor, of course, said, Mother, no need for any appointment. Whenever you have anything, just come to Rajnivas. You don't require to call. And just when the effect of that powerful morning was wearing off, there was a sort of knock on my door, and Mother Teresa jumped up, and I said, you know, Mother, why didn't you call us? And I would have come, and will you have a cup of tea? No, 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 we don't drink a cup of tea outside our ashram. We never have a glass of water, because if we take from the rich, we can't take from the poor, because they can't afford to give. What brings you, Mother? The governor's busy. I'll take you in 2 minutes' time. There's a delegation. I want some land for the leprosy affected in Delhi. If I get the land, I'll build the dormitories, I'll build the hospital, but I'll do all that. But I want the land, but I want it in a particular part of Delhi, which is where the leprosy affected live. And how much land, Mother, are you looking at? So she kind of appraised me and said 5 acres. Then the governor became free. We went in a few minutes, same conversation. Will you have a cup of tea? No. Then she told him all about the leprosy situation in Delhi. She could see how moved he was, and then it was only natural for him to ask, how much land, Mother? And then I soon discovered this magic of Mother Teresa, because she looks at me with a smile. She's just finished saying 5 acres to me a few minutes ago. She looks at the governor and she says, 10 acres. And she got 11. So by that time I was sort of completely enslaved.
If a learned man like a former election commissioner could benefit from the teachings, so can our today's youth. The key words are value and faith that can bring India, the fastest growing economy, to become a world power.
For India, the growth pattern in India up until now looks quite different. When we had this period of this Hindu rate of growth prior to the 1980s, then the economy grew at 5 to 6%, and now it's been growing at 8%. So things look far more stable. There was this brief period in 1991 when there was, of course, this financial crisis. But the economy recovered, and now is when we really see the kind of the growth years in the Indian market. So there are a lot of things that are very, very good about the Indian economy at this point. On a much more broader level, I think the two areas that require the most amount of focus, and this is important not just for growth being inclusive, which is making sure that everybody in the Indian economy benefits from it, but just to ensure growth, period. I mean, just to make sure that we grow at the same rate, is we need a lot more investment in infrastructure. We need, and both physical and human infrastructure. We have to be very innovative about how we get more the workforce better educated, because it's not numbers, it's about quality.
Despite India's exceptional growth, it has not been able to generate job facilities in comparison with its peers for the youth. What should be done?
One way to think about that is that about the problem of employment and employability and generation of employment opportunities is to think that this is generated by the economic system as a whole across the different sectors of the economy. You cannot rely on one particular segment of the economy to generate employment. You have to look at how the growth dynamics play out in the overall system.
If you can mobilize and encourage youth to undertake skilling, they have to bring about the transformation at the grassroots level. You know, play the role of a social worker and tell people it's good to get skilled. don't, sit at home and depend on it, and that kind of a role.
We would like to bring this highly employability skills program right into their curriculum, and we are not trying to do this in a very short span of time. We are trying to work with the student over a period of a year, 2 year or 3 year, so that these skills are embedded into that behavior of that individual, and that's what we are working on.
So while the tea break is going on, why don't we go and have a little chit chat with a young achiever. Shikha, you were recently selected for the ILI and you went to Mysore for it. What was your experience? Share with us.
Actually, ILI is India Leadership Initiative, where they find people who have sort of done something within their professional life. So they call it from success to significance, meaning that once you've achieved a certain thing in your own profession or business or whatever, how do you become then significant towards the society, towards the country, and how can you bring that success into actually a larger group, into a community. So the whole experience was wonderful, because this whole initiative is based on value-based leadership. That how do you meet other people who in other walks of life have been successful, and you interact over certain readings. I mean, you're given certain readings from different world leaders, industrial leaders, and then you discuss and find your own position within that place, like how would you have responded to that situation. And you meet a peer group which is between the age group of 30 to 45, so they're all young people who have been successful. It's basically a place where everybody from different walks of life is coming together, ideating, thinking. Because without this entire this whole group coming together, it will be very hard to actually think for the future of the country.
Is India the land of opportunity? We all agree that India is a rising nation full of possibilities and opportunities, and today's youth is also finding its voice. But what should be done to ensure maximum support?
It's a little bit about India, which is something that even I didn't have a sense of awareness of, and then a subsequent sense of pride in as well. I met artisans, I met non-profits, I found exceptional people working around the country. I also realized that a lot of work was being done on a small scale, and that's the reason why I felt that, okay, if there's a right partnership would be, how do you take this to a significant scale? How do you take something like this, from being anecdotal pilots to being something that is very mainstream?
If you are focused about using your expertise and doing so in an unbiased way to help align the different stakeholders, a lot can get done. So for example, I'm doing quite a lot of work on infrastructure finance, which has been talked about for years, at thousands of committee reports, but the ability to bring the right groups of people together and get a few small things done makes a big difference.
Poverty in India, can it be eradicated? Is there any way to escape the shackles of malnutrition, illiteracy and unemployment?
Of malnutrition, education, these are all part of a package of what one can call poverty. So poverty being multidimensional, it's not just an issue of income. You have to look at access to all these kind of basics. And because it involves cross sectors, intersectoral and cross sectoral issues, I think to really get there, if you really want to as a nation get to that target, it really requires a systemic change.
All developed nations have and continue to prioritize their nation's healthcare. But is it possible in a developing country like India, where the basic needs of food and shelter are also missing?
%25% of our population around is below the poverty line. 3.3% of our population go below the poverty line every year due to expenditure on health care and on treatment of diseases. Out of this, 1.4% is due to use of medicines, and since that is my line, 50% of these medicines are not needed or not used well. We also have had several very positive experiments in delivering health care to the poor of the poorest.
For a lot of people, particularly in very poor areas, particularly in resource-poor settings, the degree of universality is going to be about access to basic medical services, and for a while there really won't be very sophisticated services that are provided there. But at least for the services that people are going to get, there has to be some universal way of doing it. As people get richer, it will transition much more into an insurance-based system. And the key there is going to be to make sure that everybody is in the insurance system rather than having very large gaps where people fall out of it.
India led the world in the 1950s on many of these challenges. So if you look at India's tremendous success story in fighting malaria in the 1950s, India was able to accomplish in the 1950s something that no other country, including India, has been able to accomplish since then. But now, today in 2010, it has the dubious distinction of leading the world in things like child malnourishment and the fraction of unvaccinated children. And so this is an embarrassment. It's not something about being Indian, because like I said, once upon a time India led the world, and it stopped in the past 60 years. Nor is it the case that India is one monolithic system. As all of you know, there's many parts of India that actually don't have these statistics. It's, in my view, a failure of governance, and I don't completely understand where we went wrong. And health insurance is not health care. That's the first thing to remember, and that we should never forget that. Health insurance is really a way to smooth out financial uncertainty. But let's think about what this health insurance expansion can really do for Indians. The first thing that a successful health insurance expansion requires is that it requires, at the end of the day, access to high-quality health care providers. It's simply ensuring the uninsured doesn't do a lot for a person's health. And in India, we'll need a mechanism to figure out how to figure out who to cover and what to cover them for. And like I said, I don't think we can cover everybody for everything. The most bang for the buck in India is in public health. You know, by spending just a fraction of what we would spend on health insurance and picking up the ball where we dropped it in the mid-1970s is actually the best way to improve health for all Indians in India.
Who is unaware of the complexities of the Indian elections? Is there any way to simplify this process or bring optimum and maximum transparency?
The responsibility for conducting Indian elections rests with the Election Commission of India. Our objective, of course, is to conduct free and fair, peaceful and transparent elections, where every eligible elector gets an opportunity to exercise franchise vote. We have more voters than all 50 countries of Europe and Canada and Australia and Japan put together. But it is not only about the size, it is the complexities. We have to conduct an election at the remotest of election. Not one person should be left out. We in fact have a polling station even now for just one voter in the Gir forest of Gujarat. Till last year we had one more polling station with one voter in Kerala. He knew his right. He was a very spoiled guy. He would come normally after lunch at 2 o'clock. But we had to set up our shop at 7 o'clock, that is legal requirement. And even after he had voted at 2 o'clock or 2:30 as he chose, we had to keep the polling station open till 5 o'clock. Just in case theoretically somebody comes and challenges that he was not the guy, I'm the voter, so there is a disputed vote there. We have to make every effort that every single eligible person is on roll, and every single ineligible person is deleted, like somebody who is no longer a citizen or who has died or who has migrated has to be removed. We use technology every possible technology. Where all technology failed, the runners, physically, we identified at least 3 able-bodied young men who will walk up through that difficult terrain, go to the nearest communication point where there is no communication shadow, and tell us what's happening, so that within 10 minutes of any event we know, and which is proving as a deterrence to troublemakers, because they know that these guys will know and then there is trouble for them. There was when we were doing Kashmir elections, about 100 other complexities. One was that what if in the last minute the polling parties ditch us, because we were not very sure of where they stand, of their loyalty. There will be no election. That will be the sabotage. So we identified the Urdu knowing people in Punjab, in UP, in Haryana, right up to Bihar. Total alternative political polling parties airlifted to Kashmir. Finally these guys landed up and they did duty. Instead of sending these guys back, we kept them, we paid them. But we didn't want to take any risk on that score, because any election postponement has very serious implications. Kashmir has a little extra. And you know the results in 12 hours flat. It's a magic. People wonder, all over the world, you can't imagine, every week we get 2 foreign delegations wanting to know what is the magic wand that we have. How an illiterate country, poor country like India could do something which even an advanced country cannot do. There are countries where results take 3 months, 6 months, and then not accepted. Here in 12 hours you know the results. And in this background, what is our vision? We would like to have the day when the elections, which are completely free of crime and abuse of money, based on a perfect electoral roll, and with voters' full participation. So you are in this vision, you have to participate and you have to vote.
Before we round up, let's go to Kiran Pastricha, the Executive Director and CEO of Aspen Institute India, and find out what does she think of Ideas India 2010.
Ideas is really about ideas, about India. This is our 3rd program in succession. It's an annual event that we put together. The idea really comes from the fact that you want people from all walks of life to come together. Because tendency is you go to a program for academics, you'll only find academics or you'll find only students. Here you have everything from students to bureaucrats to diplomats, academics, the scientists. It's an amazing group of people who are sitting here. And the idea comes, the panel speaks and everybody starts thinking, because everyone's thinking is different. And so you want to create a debate, you want people to start thinking about issues that matter to India. It could range anything from what the economy is to what really makes, what is the values-based leadership, to employment, to job creation, anything that's troublesome in India. Health issues, we really want to touch each and every one of those issues. So this is what really Ideas is about, is to bring people together and talk together as a group. You know, this is really not about saying we have 5 particular action items and we are going to make, you know, the government work on those actions. The whole concept is that you need to think of an idea. So whether you're a housewife, there's a housewife in the audience, there is a student in the audience. What can you, each person, think about India, and how do you change yourself in your own environment? So you go back with some ideas and try and make a difference in your own small sphere, and every small sphere adds to make the large sphere. So the question really comes about is, are we making a difference to the audience's thinking about India? Do you want to go back a little more educated, a little more sensitive, and a little more conscious that you as an individual can also make a difference? That's really what this is about. This is not about the government doing everything. This is what each one can go back a little more enlightened, hopefully, and do a little bit for themselves.
We've discussed many burning issues today. From Kashmir to employment generation, poverty eradication, the elections and whatnot. But what is important now is that every individual needs to step up in their own unique way and work towards the betterment of one and all. Because every individual counts and every idea is important. Think about it.